Fuck!
Yo, what is up guys, this is TyrantXSwine here and welcome to another game review. This time I'm going to be reviewing Celeste, a 2D platforming game that was developed and published by a Canadian game studio called Matt Makes Games. Now you begin the story as a girl called Madeline, or whoever you decide to call her since you can change her name at the beginning of the game, but her goal is to climb Celeste Mountain, but along the way she meets different people and different sorts of entities who are either going to end up befriending her or try to stop her from climbing the mountain. Now Celeste surprised me with its story. It just went from having a normal girl climbing up a mountain and into something much more personal. Madeline never really has a good reason for why she wants to climb this mountain other than she has to do it. But throughout her journey we actually encounter her dark side that is unleashed early on in the game that's apparently called part of Madeline. So Madeline, along with her friend Leo, who she meets at some point during her adventure, end up getting caught in Dark Madeline's mischiefs, who is desperately trying to stop Madeline from getting to the top of the mountain. And it's at this point in the journey that I started to realise that it becomes something more than just a simple climb, and more like a spiritual encouragement as Madeline realises that this dark aspect of herself just keeps getting in her way, and it's something she shouldn't have to run away from, but something she should embrace and cooperate with. And to be honest, by cooperating together, the two of them actually achieve their goal. The story really does make you think on an emotional level. In a lot of ways it does make you connect with the main character, even though you mainly see the characters talk via text boxes, like in the old days with the old 2D games. The whole story of Celeste was interesting. Going into this game I was just expecting it to be like, you know, the older 2D games that rely more on challenge and story, but this game really did have a well thought out story, and I liked that. I like how it ended. It had a happy ending, which was good. I mean, it has its moments of sadness along the way, but at least it ends on a good note. Now, there are about 8 playable chapters in the game, and it did take me a good amount of time, about 12 hours to complete it thanks to the game's increase in difficulty. Though not as long as Cuphead, which did take me probably about twice as long as that, it was still a decent amount of playtime for a game like this. Okay, now let's move on to the characters. Now, there isn't too many characters, but for a game when you're climbing up a mountain, you're not really going to be expecting too many, but with the amount of characters it has, it uses them very effectively. Madeline as the main character was actually really relatable, probably the most relatable character I have seen in a very long time. I mean, even though the game shows its characters in a cartoony anime-like style, I think, Madeline has so many things going on in her life that she seems to be struggling with, like depression and anxiety, and this sort of stuff gets a bit too much for her to the point where she actually just wanted to climb a mountain. Like, when she ends up encountering something strange throughout her journey, she tends to get impatient since it's stopping her from achieving her goal, and she starts saying mean things about this stuff sometimes. But she does have a sweet heart though. I mean, because when it came to Miss Oshiro, some girls she meets on her journey, despite him being a pain with looking after the hotel and trying to make her stay there, she still decides to help him out and clean up the place, and she honestly felt sorry for the way she treated him later on and regrets the things she said. She can be a shy person too. Like when she met Leo for the first time, she was a bit wary around him as she wasn't exactly sure what to do with this guy. But as the two of them got to know each other more as they climbed up the mountain together, there was a point where they actually sat down and had a conversation. She started to open up more about herself and the difficult feelings she's been having as of late, and because Leo understood what she was going through, it did make her feel better to know that someone knows what she is going through. The thing about Madeline is that this sort of behavior makes her feel like a real person. She has her weaknesses and she has her strengths. She's suffering from certain things like depression and anxiety, but the help of other people around her help her get through these sort of things, and it makes her more encouraged to complete the task that she has set herself. It makes her feel like she has real goals, whereas main characters in other games are just trying to stop something from happening, whereas this is just a person just trying to do something, but is mainly held back by herself, pretty much the feelings that she has that are the dark aspect of her, which is what that part of her dark side really represents as a whole. And that's what I like about Madeline. She's a character that you feel for since she's suffering from real life issues. Now, I really did like her interactions with her dark self. At first she thought it was just something that was being a nuisance, trying to stop her climbing a mountain and telling her to just give up, when she realised it was something that she needed to let go, although that wasn't exactly the right kind of message she was going for when she told that to her dark self, since it didn't really take it too well. And then Madeline eventually came to the conclusion that it was a section of herself that she needed to work with to move forward to achieve her goal. And I really did like that. It wasn't something she just had to get out of her system. It was something she needed to cooperate with. She needed to make peace with and just use it to help her to get to where she wanted to go. Okay, now let's move on to Leo, who is pretty much more of a secondary character, but he's pretty much the other character you'll often see throughout the game. Now, he's also climbing a mountain just like Madeline, and pretty much has the same reasons as her, is he doesn't really have much of a good reason for doing it other than just that he wants to do it. Now, he is the quippy joker of the game. You often hear him making jokes as much as possible to lighten the mood, and he does sometimes go down that meme route, which I was a bit cringing at the same time, but it was still kind of funny at how relative it was in this game. But he can be a serious person, especially in dangerous moments, like when he ended up being imprisoned in a temple, or when Madeline started talking about more personal subjects with him. He's that sort of guy that you'd be fine with just talking to if you had any personal issues, and he'd be fine with it since he has his own issues himself, but he just seems like a decent guy overall just to hang around with. Leo actually ends up being a big help to Madeline at certain points in their adventure, like when they're on a gondola together and then Madeline's dark side ends up attacking it, and then Madeline starts suffering from a panic attack, and at that point Leo tries to help her calm down by telling her to breathe, which ends up helping Madeline in other points during the game, which is something that Leo taught her. And in some ways, Madeline actually reminds Leo of his sister Alex, whose personality resembled Madeline's very similarly, which gives Leo an insight on what Madeline is going through, and it gives him a reason to protect her in some ways, since Madeline reminds him of his sister, and it makes sense in a lot of ways, and it just shows how good of a guy Leo is. Now, moving on to the next character, we have the dark side of Madeline, who ends up being awakened by Madeline when she goes into this weird castle of sorts and ends up looking in a mirror, which suddenly activates the dark side of herself and ends up coming into our world. And in a way, even though she is Madeline herself, she is a separate character. She appears time and time again, trying to stop Madeline from getting further up the mountain, since pretty much the dark side of Madeline is her dark emotions, so it's pretty much the weaknesses within her trying to stop her from going any further. But it turns out this was the dark side of Madeline's way of trying to protect her, and even though Madeline didn't exactly see the full picture of her actions until she actually properly confronted her dark side, and saw that she actually needed her to get to the top of the mountain. In a way, both of these two separate entities of Madeline basically had their own strengths and weaknesses and had their own ways of doing things, and it wasn't until they came together when they realized that the greatest strength they needed was each other. Now next up we have the old lady, or Granny as she likes to be called, and she's pretty much the only person who lives on the mountain and knows the mysterious ways it operates. And she does try to warn Madeline about this, but until she finds out about Madeline's goal for trying to get to the top of the mountain, just laughs in her face, which Madeline gets pissed off about. But the old lady does actually help Madeline realize what her dark side was trying to do for her when she keeps getting in her way, and then Granny just gives Madeline some healthy advice and just trying to sort things out with her, and then that's pretty much it when it comes to her character. So now we come to the final character in the game, and that's Mr. Oshiro, who is actually a ghost of a manager who owned the only hotel on the mountain. And he was pretty weird since he would often argue with himself on every little word he said, mainly due to his split personality syndrome. But since it was Ghost, he can be pretty damn dangerous, especially when Madeline pissed him off when she didn't want to stay in the hotel when he was desperately trying to make her to. Although, considering the situation, I don't really blame her, but yeah, don't piss off Mr. Oshiro.
It was at this moment that Maddie knew. She fucked up.
Now, I really liked the way the characters communicated with each other. Even though they only talked by text, they would always make this sort of really funny, squeaky voice, which was really always funny to listen to. And even though they might not speak any of the words that are shown on the screen, you can really actually tell the kind of emotions they're expressing when they are talking about certain situations. And at times it can be hilarious and quite sad with how quickly their tone of voice will change. Like with Madeline, sometimes she'll be so upbeat and talking a high-pitched voice where it's actually kind of funny, and then sometimes she'll talk in such a low-toned, annoying, pissed off voice, which is actually really funny to listen to. And just seeing the pictures of their faces in the boxes just expressing the emotions they're having is just absolutely funny but quite sad at the same time. And I did like how they also went a little bit further sometimes with these text box situations, how you actually see some of the characters break the fourth wall, with dark side Madeline, who would actually start, when she got pissed off at one point, she started crawling out of the box like she was trying to get to Madeline herself within the game, and I was like, ooh, this isn't good. Okay, now let's move on to the gameplay. Now what I really love about Celeste's gameplay is the fact that it repeats the success that Cuphead did. Cuphead brought back that feeling of running and gunning from older 2D games like Contra or Metal Slug and added its own twist to the genre, and Celeste does the exact same for that when it comes to the 2D platforming genre. Now Celeste does have the normal jumping from platform to platform mechanics like in every other platformer, but it does add something new to the mix to make it stand out from the ones that came before it. Alongside jumping, you can also air dash, which can help you get across greater distances, but you can only use this once, so make sure you know when to use it. And I like how it's omnidirectional, like whatever direction you're pointing your controller in, your air dash will go in that direction, and I really like that, how completely accurate it is. Maybe a little bit too accurate though. You can even grab a hold of and climb up ledges, which does make sense since you are climbing up a mountain. However, you only have a limited amount of time to climb up the ledges because otherwise Madeline would run out of stamina to hold on, and trust me, this can end up being one of the main annoying things when it comes to this game with trying to get past certain areas. Now these are mechanics you never really see in older platformers since you would have to be pinpoint accurate when trying to land the jump. However, despite these new added mechanics, it doesn't make the game any easier, trust me. Because Celeste's difficulty is definitely something to take note of, because at times, this game can be pretty damn difficult. Even though it does start off relatively easy from the beginning of the game, like the first level and the second level, and even the third one at times, the more you progress, the more difficult it's going to get, and it definitely does get more difficult as the game starts throwing out new mechanics every single level to switch up the gameplay and provide new challenges for you to overcome. And trust me, you're going to need to learn these mechanics very quickly, because when you see them once, they're going to end up appearing in every other level after that. I'll explain these mechanics in the level design section, but compared to Cuphead, this was nowhere near as rage-inducing as that game, especially if you aren't going to go for the collectibles. But the game has enough challenge to keep you occupied for a good while, and trust me, it took me about 12 hours to do, whereas really, that was me trying to get as many of the collectibles as I could. Whereas in reality, it probably would have taken me probably about maybe 5 to 6 hours if I didn't even bother going for them. However, luckily for those people who are just casual gamers and want to have a stress-free playthrough, then there is an assist mode option that can give you certain abilities to make things easier for you, like invincibility or more air dash movements or slow-mo and stuff like that. So it's obvious the developers were thinking of the casual gamers who just wanted to just go for this game very nicely without having the challenge for them to do. But it's best to play this game without the assist mode, because honestly you wouldn't be getting the best experience on this game. Now in each of the levels there are various different types of collectibles to find. The main collectibles are strawberries, which makes sense when you complete the game, and it certainly is something different for once other than the usual radio tower you see in every Ubisoft game. But the game does try to change ways of how you get these strawberries. Now the usual way of getting these strawberries is obviously finding secret areas within the level and getting past obstacles to get to them. And you can only get these strawberries as if you manage to get to a safe area past all like the deadly shit that's in your way, and then you'll acquire that strawberry. However, there is strawberries that have wings on them, which means you have to get them without using your air dash ability. And there are also small orange dots that you have to collect in one room, and you have to get them all to combine together, which forms a strawberry, which is kind of weird. But the developers were definitely trying to find different ways to make it challenging to get these strawberries instead of just being plain and simple to just get them. Now also in every single level there is a B tape to collect, and you obviously have to find another secret area to get these, and these are basically extra levels with increased difficulty. I did try a few of these, but I never completed them. I just did not have the patience to do it. I had the patience to complete the main game itself, but for these I couldn't. But apparently if you complete these, you end up unlocking C tapes, which are apparently even more difficult versions of the levels from the main story. So at least these tapes do actually add a ton of more gameplay, even though it can be very painful to finish them. Now alongside the B tapes, there's also a singular blue heart to get in every chapter, and each of them, when you acquire them, have a special name linked to them. Although I'm not entirely sure what the whole purpose was for them beyond as a collectible. I'm pretty sure if I just look it up, I mean, I'll know what the use for them will be, but I feel like the blue hearts definitely have a much bigger meaning. Maybe I need to play the last level again or something, because I'm pretty damn sure that'll explain it. But nonetheless, it was still a collectible, and one of these was actually very fun to get since you had to do like a weird air dash puzzle to acquire it. Now, the level design is certainly one of the best aspects the game has to offer. Even though every level increases difficulty, what makes Celeste's level design stand out compared to other platformers is the variety in mechanics each level provides. Early on you will encounter a green diamond of sorts, which is meant to be an extra air dash if you manage to get it. After that, the game offers more things like this weird bubble things. Like you have a green bubble which gives you like a free air dash in whatever direction you're facing, and then there's a red bubble which goes in any direction until you hit a solid direction. So basically these are like extra transportation type things. Another example would be a golden feather which gives you limited flying abilities. And these abilities are introduced as the game progresses and create plenty of challenges and paths for you to take to traverse the level, and some of these can actually even uncover secret pathways for you. There's also interactive objects too, like platforms only moving when you activate air dash, or boxes only move in the direction you control, weird giant bubbles you can dash through, or these weird box monsters that move in the direction you hit it on. I really like how the game introduces so many mechanics to give each level a lot of variation and provides a lot of different challenges for you to get past, and that's pretty much one of the best things about Celeste's level design, is that it gives you so much things to use to get past certain areas, and it just provides so much variation for the level design. Now, I did actually like the design of the levels themselves. Even though there's only 8 chapters, these chapters can actually be quite long, especially chapter 3. That one certainly took some time. And with the amount of different areas you can go to, there's definitely some areas you'll miss since there are secrets scattered everywhere. And despite it being a mountain, I like the different styles of environments and hazards there is, and how these can affect the level itself. On the later levels, the higher up you go, the wind will start to affect your movement, making it difficult to jump effectively. You'll also have to dodge dangerous spikes on every level too, which does make sense since spikes are a classic obstacle that you usually see in 2D platform games. Hell, even sometimes you'll go to the alternate dimension where you encountered the dark side of Madeline. You'll have to go up against dangerous monsters or escape from dangerous monsters to somehow get out of there. And when you go to Mr. Oshiro's hotel, you can see that his presence has caused weird blob monsters to infect the place. Stuff like this continues to grow the list of challenges to overcome in the game, and it makes it a non-stop ride of fun to enjoy. Okay, now let's move on to the graphics, and the graphics of this game are exactly like a 2D game would look like, just more smoother and better looking, and it definitely fits the game perfectly, giving you a nostalgic feeling of better times in the gaming world, like back in the 90s when this was pretty much, these type of games were all over the place. I do like the style that the characters were designed in. It's sort of a mixture between cartoon and anime, which makes the expressions of the characters when they are talking to each other very funny sometimes with their reactions, especially with Madeline, with just the different kinds of faces she makes. Like sometimes she can look very happy, but then she has her, like I said before, her tsundere type mad face, which is just hilarious, especially when she's talking. I also really do like the look of the main menu map too, as you see the positions of the levels on the mountain, and certain buildings that are significant to those exact levels, kind of like in Mario, which shows specific things you'll be going up against when you go into those levels, and obviously Celeste took some sort of reference to that, and I really liked that it did that. It was a really cool looking map, I have to say. Now moving on to the soundtrack. The soundtrack to Celeste is incredible to listen to, done in an electrical 8-bit fashion, which just fits the game beautifully. Each level has a sort of different theme to it that can either be really fun or airy to listen to. Like for example, during the first level, the music has a very upbeat vibe to it, as Madeline begins her adventure up the mountain with high hopes. But when you reach the levels 2, 3, and 5, it becomes a bit more horror as you discover more secrets in the mountain and the creepy yet mysterious power it possesses. And when you get to level 6, it has a tranquil yet has a feeling of uncertainty, and then the final level gives us an epic theme as Madeline and her dark side work together to conquer the mountain, which was such a great way to finish off this game. It's been kind of surprising these last couple of years finding video games with actually very fantastic music, and I'm really glad to see that Celeste is also one of those games that has really well done music to listen to. It's definitely something I would go back to and listen to. Now, one last thing before I close off this review, there is actually a little secondary game called Pico 8, which is sort of like the precursor of Celeste, and it's practically what it's based off. It's pretty much a version of Celeste if it was released back in the 1990s. It has all like the classic mechanics of a 2D platformer where it's like you have to jump accurately. You don't have air dash and you can't climb up any of the ledges or any of that sort of stuff. It's more of a retro version of Celeste. And I kind of like that. I like how it's a neat addition to the main game itself, and you technically can discover it in the main game itself as a little Easter egg, and then once you've done that you can play it again in the main menu. And yeah, it's just something a little extra that's been put into the game that's actually very nice. So, overall, Celeste is a fantastic game, and much like Cuphead, it has brought back a nostalgic feeling from a time of gaming that's been lost from us for a good long time. It has a good story, well thought out characters, great mechanics, pretty challenging, but not too challenging to the point where it's just like stupidly difficult like Dark Souls, great level design, and just fantastic music, and it's just a brilliant game overall. So I'm going to give Celeste. So that is my review of Celeste. Hope you've enjoyed this review. Comment down below what you think of this game. Comment what other games you think I could do. And I shall see you guys in the next random video.